All right, because it's probably my favourite big sequence in the movie, let's dissect the scene of the Kyln. Now, if you're ever struggling to introduce a lot of cast to an audience, what better way than have them line up as criminals and get John C. Reilly to basically read the character bios from the production notes?
Yeah. From Terra, raised from youth by a band of mercenaries called the Ravagers, led by Yondu Udanta.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked.
What a bunch of a-holes.
So they're sent to the Kyln, which I think we need to spend a bit of time on because this whole sequence is just a brilliant sequence in terms of dialogue, action, character development. It's wonderful.
Cameos. We got some cameos.
We should start with a very clever line as they're walking into the Kyln because they've come from Novacor, Xandar, and Novacor are the good cops, like John C. Reilly, Peter Serafinowicz. They're good guys. But as they're walking into the Kyln, Rocket has a line which says, I guess most of Novacor want to uphold the law, but the ones here are corrupt and cruel.
I guess most of Novacor want to uphold the laws, but these ones here, they're corrupt and cruel.
Which basically goes, we now have a license to kill a lot of people in this sequence because we've established that these ones, even though they're the same, are bad ones. Which is great because you're like, bring on the violence.
And there's lots of character work done very quickly. We find out that Gamora is betraying Ronan.
I wasn't retrieving the orb for Ronan. I was betraying him.
She's not going to keep that a secret at all, which I find odd.
Well, they'd established that in a deleted scene, actually. So they had to. So there's a scene where Gamora kills all the Sakarans on her mission. So we know she is betraying Ronan from the off. So that I guess they cut that scene, so they needed her to say it in a line. But we see Rocket's scars,
which is really effective. The bit where, and again, music plays such a big part, and it's the song that's playing over it. But when you see his shaved back and like the genetic enhancements, and Peter Quill just sort of looks at him, and it's really powerful.
Yeah.
We also get because it's a prison. There's always the Big Daddy in the prison, and we get that alien who goes, "Check out the new meat. I'm going to slather you in Ganabian jelly and go to town." Sexy.
Is that the Nathan Fillion cameo?
I think so. I don't know. I think it might be. He's the big blue guy.
Yeah, so that's Nathan Fillion, who's in all of James Gunn's movies. And there's also a cameo in this scene. One of the prisoners, a human, is Lloyd Kaufman of Troma fame. He made The Toxic Avenger. Okay. He produced all those movies. And Lloyd Kaufman paid James Gunn $150 to write Romeo and Juliet, which was James Gunn's first gig in Hollywood. And he said he learned everything he knows about filmmaking from Lloyd and Troma, and so paid it back.
And you mentioned Drax already. Dave Bautista, this was a revelation to me because you sort of go, I'd not seen Dave Bautista in a movie before this. I was aware he was a wrestler. I'm not massively into the WWE, but I remember he was a big wrestler in that. And from the minute he appears, you're like, this is the funniest performance.
Yeah, it's very, very funny.
In the film.
Yeah.
You! Man who has lain with the Lascavarian.
It was one time, man.
Why would I run? Why would I put my finger on his throat? It's just like, because you're just not expecting it at that point. That's the first thing that he says that is really funny. I want to give a special mention to a guy called Lexus Rodney, who plays Molka Dar, who, if Drax is the funniest character in Guardians of the Galaxy, the funniest line is where Drax goes, "I'm keeping the knife." And the alien next to him, Molka Dar, goes, "That was my favorite knife." I don't know why, but that line just kills me every time.
I want to do a shout out as well to Spencer Wilding, who plays the mean guard in this film. He's the guy that takes Peter Quill's personal stereo.
Yeah.
And there's a deleted scene which on the Blu-ray, James Gunn says he really regrets taking it out, where he is puts on the personal stereo and dances around the prison.
So, whoa, 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 it's magic.
And it's very, very funny. And I do think they should have kept that in.
What's funny is he's walking along being all like happy, listening to the song, and then there's a prisoner just sitting by him and just goes, "Huh!" The prisoner, and then just walks on dancing.
And Spencer Wilding went on to play Darth Vader in Rogue One.
Oh, did not know that. Yeah. And action junkies like myself who just love it when the shooting begins. The bit where Rocket catches a gun Drax throws and just starts blowing the shit out of
But
everything.
it's so strange because you're watching it, you're like, oh, this is really exciting. But it's a CGI raccoon
On
and a
CGI tree.
It's ridiculous. But the humans don't quite pull it off as well as those two
It's
do.
the money shot. And
Yeah.
sometimes with these big movies, they'll invite press to come and see not the film early, but see scenes early when it's not finished. And I think I got invited to see that scene twice, and I went both times because it does give you a great flavour of the film. But obviously, they thought this is the scene that's going to be at the front of our trailers. This is the scene that's going to sell this movie and this tone and what this is.
More great Drax. Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast.
That's
I
very,
would
really
catch
funny.
it.
Yeah.
It's so good.
very good.
This whole establishing of him as someone who metaphors don't work on
Yeah.
is just a great.
But do you not feel that? So Gamora,
Gamora, the adopted daughter of the mad titan Thanos.
I feel a bit cheated by her characterization because she is funny and she's hard as nails and merciless and all the rest of it. And so her arc is that she's going to thaw a little bit. But they've given a similar mode of address, a similar register to Drax, so she doesn't get certain things that Peter says.
I have no words for an honorless thief.
Takes things a little bit literally. So she doesn't have a comic line that's as clear as Drax's. There's a little bit of not interplay. There's a bit of repetition, and that's a shame.
Not just with Drax as well. It's interesting you mentioned that because there's a scene like the money shot later on when they're all dressed up in their red gear for the first time and they're doing a slow-mo walk towards camera. And it's Gamora, like it's a sort of like they're going to work shot and Gamora yawns
Yeah, it's really funny.
in it. But also Rocket could have done the yawn as well. Like it does.
Yeah.
There's a crossover there. Like she's not really established as the one who's sort of like over all this.
It, yeah.
But in terms of Bautista's character, he certainly said that he's had lots of autistic children come up to him and say how helpful that character has been in that they feel like they see themselves on screen a little bit in him, which I think is a really unexpected. I don't think he was expecting that when he played that role. So that's really sweet byproduct of this film.
And the big blue alien, again, we have a repeat of him where he's listening to the Rupert Holmes song, Escape, in brackets, the Pina Colada song. And then he gets knocked the fuck out. By August 2014, after this movie was released, the album, Quill's mixtape, the album, had reached the top of the Billboard 200 chart, and it became the first soundtrack album in history consisting entirely of previously released songs to make it to the top of the chart.
There was even some business in the cassette market. They released the mixtape as a cassette, and it sold a shit ton.
They had to build the Walkman for this
you'd have
movie.
to.
No, they did in the movie. They couldn't get.
They couldn't get
They
one.
couldn't get enough of the same make of Walkman because they needed more than one.
Okay.
And so they had to actually build one. Thanks. And so yeah, that's pretty much the Kyln scene. Just an epic scene. Probably my favorite sequence in the movie.
Spoiler alert.
Now I'm going to fast forward to the nowhere scene. I don't know if I've mentioned I was on set for this scene.
Oh, really?
It's great though, like this giant floating decapitated head of a celestial being.
Yeah, but I think that's why it works because the thing in itself is